Hi everyone, and welcome back. What a beautiful day it is today after the big storm. So today we're going to talk more about the food that we eat and how that can directly affect our health. Now this is common knowledge to many people, but I didn't know much about this stuff, and I figured there are many other people in the same boat as me. So let's start again with refined sugar. Did you know the sugar that we eat has been classified by the World Health Organization as a chemical, not a food? Now, who would have thought, eh? And it turns out sugar is nothing like the original sugar harvested from the sugar beet or sugar cane, and it's not nutritional. A teaspoon of white sugar is actually made up of 53% glucose and 47% fructose. So both of these are different types of sugars. And they are different chemicals that have to be processed in two different ways inside our body. Now hold that thought. Let's start with the glucose. Consuming excessive amounts of sugar, half of which all breaks down to glucose, creates other huge health problems, such as 99% of all the modern day metabolic diseases. Incredibly, that's exactly what the science says, which includes type 2 diabetes, one of the big ones. Now, on the subject of this disease, make no mistake, as the science is very clear, type 2 diabetes is a modern day progressive disease caused solely by us humans consuming far too much glucose in the form of sugar and wheat flour products than our body requires or can effectively cope with. Now that also creates insulin resistance, which drives the whole metabolic process. On that note, just a quick mention about insulin. Insulin is a very powerful hormone designed to do many critical things inside our body, and the commonly known one is to transport the glucose that we eat out of our blood system as soon as possible into our muscles, cells, as fuel for the energy we require. But that is only if the cells have room for the glucose. Now the rest is stored into fat cells for later use. But another reason to get the glucose out of our blood system is because it does damage to the lining of our arteries. And that is one of the most common reasons for our blocked arteries. Time is essential. And the more glucose that we eat over time, the less sensitive to the insulin response our body becomes. And again, the more damage that gets done to our arteries. Now get this, the more desensitization our insulin levels become to respond to the glucose we consume means we need higher insulin levels to do the same job. And that takes a long time to drain away. Now, the presence of those high insulin levels locks the surplus fat into the fat cells so it can't be utilized, and therefore even with all the physical exercise and dieting you simply can't lose weight. You see, as it turns out, it is the low insulin levels which signals the body to use the body stored fat as energy, and we lose weight. And it is commonly known that if we want type 2 diabetes and to harm our immune system, our arteries, our heart, our brain, our nerves, the necessary effect of insulin, and much more, then all we have to do is simply eat plenty of foods that all break down to glucose inside our body. Booyah! Simple as that. Now, unfortunately, but they are all the sugary foods and drinks and yummy baking products made from wheat flour. Yes, wheat grain that is ground up to make flour. Simple really, isn't it? So long term and in large amounts, glucose is very dangerous for all humans and in fact all animals. Yeah. But what I find is really interesting and clearly dangerous, which has been scientifically confirmed time and time again, is that through clever advertising, we're actually bombarded with the idea that human pleasure comes from consuming yummy foods, and it is that which makes us happy, and that we deserve it. But the science clearly shows that a sense of pleasure actually comes from a hormone inside us called dopamine, which activates the same part of our brain involved with drug addiction. Yeah, that's right. So, this modern type of white grain sugar is addictive to us humans. However, the feeling of being happy compared to pleasure comes from the hormone serotonin, which comes from a small amount made in our brain and about 90% plus from specific bacteria who live in our gut. And that is another reason to feed our gut bacteria well. And that is food which does not include glucose. Now, connecting pleasure to happiness and our self-esteem is simply a clever advertising technique. It has everything to do with specific words, emotions, and visual messages. This creates a predictable, yes, predictable, very well known response in specific parts of our brain, which prompts us to go and buy the high sugar glucose yummies. When we eat them, it briefly confirms to our brain it was the correct decision. Then it's gone. And as it turns out, it's a completely legal advertising strategy that has proven to be very successful and is making the food industry lots of money. But the outcome of eating too much glucose is going on inside our body where no one can see. That's the problem. And it all feels so normal, and yet it is also very dangerous. Now, as we've discussed in earlier videos, in today's natural world, as it was millions of years ago, with the exception of the odd wild beehive and honey ants, the only glucose available was in tiny amounts present in green leafy plants and sweet fruit in the autumn season. For millions of years, there simply wasn't enough available in the world to have the harmful effect it is having on us today. Now think about this. Even though we don't have to eat sugar, glucose, to survive, we still can't resist it because we love it. And we love it because those specific sugar bacteria we talked about in the last video are telling our brain that we have to have it and want it because they do. And the food industry advertisers keep telling us why we need to buy it in order to feel pleasure, happy and content and a part of the crowd. And our dopamine reaction pushes us towards repeating a sweet, yummy, pleasant memory. And we want to feel happy again like we did before. So in the spur of the moment, we go and buy it and eat it. Classic marketing and highly successful through all age groups, which includes our children. And it appears that those high glucose levels are one of the known reasons our children are now presenting with mental health issues. After we've eaten it, we realised it was okay, but it didn't quite fit the bill, and that's because it wasn't what was required. And the icing on the cake is, after our stress response has calmed down from the effect of the spiking glucose levels in our blood and the damage happening to our arteries, and the surplus has been turned into fat and stored out of harm's way, we will love it again because of the sugar's addictive nature. And it stimulates the same part of our brain as the heavy-duty drugs, morphine, heroin, etc. And it's cheap, it's clean, it's available and accessible to everyone 24/7. The perfect drug. Now, back to the fructose, which is the other part of the sugar. Science has discovered that this substance, in anything less than tiny amounts, is also a silent killer. This part of the commercial sugar is not processed in our body through the same channels as glucose, which is processed with the help of the hormone insulin. On the other hand, fructose is processed by our body through the liver, through the same system that processes the alcohol we drink. It converts the fructose to a special stored fat called glycogen. But our liver is designed to store only the tiny amounts of fructose we get from plants. In the ancient world, as still today, the glycogen is converted to energy to keep us going in order to find our next meal, usually in the mornings before we have something to eat, and through the night while we're sleeping. Our liver is not designed to have to process the volumes of fructose found in the sugar and flour that we consume every day. And it very quickly clogs up the liver cells. Over time, it can even kill the liver completely. And that is called non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Now, interestingly, over 100 years ago, it was only the alcoholics who had this issue, hence the name. Now, how important is our liver? Just for interest. Well, it's working 24 hours a day forever, and it performs just over 3,000 different tasks which keep us alive, including the filtering of all our blood 500 times a day. That's right, 500 times a day. It is really important. Another eye-opener is that the glucose is actually not very sweet. What we taste in these sugary sweets that we eat is actually the fructose. The same fructose our liver struggles with, and the same fructose the bad bacteria also love to eat. When they do, the acid they produce, again, rots our teeth and creates an acid pH inside our body, which makes it hard for our body to function perfectly. And the same fructose the food companies pack into their products to make them taste super sweet. And then they tell us it is sugar-free. Well, technically it is sugar-free, but packed with heaps of fructose instead. Now, a simple test for fatty liver disease. Stand up straight, back to the wall, look down to see your toes, and if you can't see your toes, then you may have a distended liver, blocking your vision, in which case you may be developing a liver issue. It is well worth asking your doctor about a simple test for non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, and also one for levels of fasting insulin resistance. As it turns out, they are two conditions that can go under the medical radar, and yet as soon as you know, they are simple changes you can make in your lifestyle which can reverse a lot of your health issues. How simple can that be? Phew, that was a big video and a great place to stop. And next time we'll continue with more interesting points about our nutrition. Okay, we'll see you then. Have a great day. Bye-bye.